Hi, I'm Amanda Lewis, and when my colleagues threw me a goodbye forever party, they thought they were mocking me. But the truth about my transfer was something they never saw coming. The bar was loud and sticky. A banner hung crookedly over the corner booth, the words, "Good luck, Amanda," written in cheap, glittery marker. It felt less like a celebration and more like a stage for my public exit. My team, the people I had worked with for 5 years, were all there. They were smiling, handing me a beer and patting my shoulder, but their eyes told a different story. They thought they were getting rid of me. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far this story travels. We're all going to miss you so much, Sarah said, her voice dripping with an insincerity so thick I could practically feel it clinging to my skin. Sarah was the one who always presented my ideas, as her own in meetings. "Yeah, the place won't be the same without you," Tom added, sloshing his drink. He was the one who got the promotion I was promised, the one our manager Mark said I wasn't ready for. They invited me to this party to say farewell, but it wasn't a heartfelt goodbye. It was a celebration of my supposed failure. The air was filled with inside jokes I was suddenly on the outside of, backhanded compliments that felt like small paper cuts, and quiet whispers that stopped the moment I looked over. They treated my transfer like a demotion, a final, embarrassing shuffle out the door. I let them. I smiled, nodded, and held my glass, a silent observer at my own execution. After about an hour of forced pleasantries, my manager, Mark, stood up and tapped his glass with a fork. The chatter died down. Every eye in the room turned to him, then to me. His face was flushed with cheap beer and a sense of victory. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced, raising his glass. "To Amanda." He paused for dramatic effect, a smug grin playing on his lips. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, but I kept my expression neutral. I knew what was coming. He lived for moments like this, small displays of power to remind everyone who was in charge. "She's been a dedicated member of our team," he continued, drawing out the word dedicated as if it meant boring. "And while we're sad to see her go, we're all so thrilled she's finally moving on to something." He looked around the room, making eye contact with his favorites. "Something smaller." The room erupted in laughter. It wasn't a kind, gentle laugh. It was sharp and cruel. It was the sound of a pack confirming its hierarchy. They were laughing at the idea of me in a small, unimportant office somewhere, doing a small, unimportant job. They were laughing because they thought they had won. I smiled politely. I even raised my own glass. My heart was heavy, a stone in my chest, but my mind was perfectly calm. I had a secret they couldn't even begin to guess. As their laughter echoed off the cheap wood paneling of the bar, I held on to that secret. It was my shield. They had no idea I was the one who was about to be in charge of them all. This party wasn't a surprise. It was just the final public chapter in a long story of humiliation. For 5 years, I had been the quiet workhorse of the department, was the one who came in early and stayed late. I was the one who fixed the mistakes, ran the numbers, and put together the reports that made everyone else look good. And for 5 years, I was systematically undermined. I remembered the Apex project. 2 years ago, I had spent 3 months on it, working weekends, buried in spreadsheets and market analysis until my eyes burned. I built the entire strategy from the ground up. The night before the presentation, I sent the final deck to Mark and Sarah. The next morning, they presented it to the executive board as their own. My name was mentioned once in passing on the last slide, with assistance from Amanda Lewis. I sat in the back of the room and watched them take the credit, my voice caught in my throat. When I tried to speak to Mark about it later, he just shrugged. "It was a team effort, Amanda. Don't be a poor sport." Then there was the senior analyst promotion I was promised. I had more experience and better performance metrics than anyone on the team. I was the obvious choice. But Mark gave it to Tom. His reasoning was vague and insulting. "Tom has more leadership presence," he'd told me in my performance review. "You're a great support player, but you need to be more visible." What he meant was that Tom went for drinks with him after work, and I went home to finish the work Tom had left behind. My contributions were constantly brushed aside. My ideas were ignored in meetings, only to be praised when a man repeated them 5 minutes later. I was asked to order lunch, take notes, and plan the office Christmas party, tasks that were never assigned to my male colleagues. Each incident was a small cut, but 5 years of them had left me covered in scars. This party, this final cruel joke, was just them pouring salt on the wounds. They thought it was their last chance to remind me of my place. I took a small sip of my warm beer and looked at the faces around me. They were all smiling, caught up in the shared joke of my departure. They saw me as the quiet, meek woman in the corner who never fought back. They mistook my patience for weakness. They mistook my silence for acceptance. I sat there, letting the noise of their celebration wash over me, and I remembered the cost of my dedication. I remembered the nights I spent in the office, the fluorescent lights humming above me, long after everyone else had gone home. I ate dinner from a takeout container at my desk while I double-checked the numbers for a report Mark would barely glance at before putting his name on it. I remembered the family events I missed, the friendships that faded, all because I believed that if I just worked hard enough, if I was just good enough, my efforts would eventually be recognized. I was wrong. My dedication was invisible to them. They didn't see the sacrifices. They only saw the result, a well-oiled machine that made their jobs easier. They took, and they never once stopped to acknowledge the person who was giving everything. But my work hadn't been entirely invisible. It turned out, the people who really mattered were watching. Not the managers in our little branch, but the executives at headquarters. They saw the detailed reports. They saw the flawless data. They saw the successful project outcomes. They just didn't see Mark's or Sarah's names. They saw the small signature at the bottom of the raw data files, the one I was required to put there for internal tracking. They saw my name, and they started asking questions. 2 months ago, I received an email. It was from Robert Harrison, the Vice President of Operations at our corporate headquarters in Chicago. The subject line was simple: quick chat. My heart pounded as I walked into the small private conference room to take the call. I thought I was in trouble. Amanda, Mr. Harrison's voice was calm and professional. I've been reviewing the quarterly performance reports from your branch for the past 2 years. The data analysis is exceptional, the most thorough I've seen in the entire company. I was speechless. Thank you, sir. I've also noticed, he continued, that your name is listed as the primary analyst on the foundational data, yet you're never the one presenting the findings. Your manager, Mark, is. Can you tell me why that is? And so, I told him. I didn't complain or sound bitter. I just stated the facts. I told him about the projects, the workflow, and the team structure. I never said, he stole my work. I didn't have to. Mr. Harrison read between the lines. A week later, he called again. We have a problem in that branch, Amanda. A leadership problem. And we think you're the solution. We're creating a new position, Regional Director. You'd oversee your current department and 3 others. The position will be based out of your current office, but you'll report directly to me. He paused. The thing is, we need to handle this quietly. For the next few weeks, no one can know. We'll announce it as a simple transfer. Let them think what they want. So my transfer wasn't a demotion or an exit. It was the biggest promotion of my career. I was selected for an executive role at headquarters, a position that made me the boss of every single person who was currently laughing at me. As the night wore on, the jokes grew bolder. Their confidence swelled with every drink they finished. So, Amanda, I hope your tiny new office has a window, Tom shouted from across the table, and a few people snickered. Even if it's just looking at a brick wall? Don't be mean, Tom. Sarah chimed in with a fake pout. She'll be in charge of a whole new team. I'm sure all one of them will respect her. More laughter. I just smiled. I let them have their moment. Each cruel word, each condescending laugh, wasn't hurting me anymore. It was fuel. It was steel, hardening my spine. They thought they were pushing me down, but they were only confirming that I was making the right decision. They were showing me exactly who they were, one last time. I looked at each of their faces, at their smug, self-satisfied expressions. and I felt a strange sense of peace. They were celebrating an ending, but I knew this was my beginning. The next morning, the weekly team meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. I walked in at 8:58. I wasn't wearing my usual gray pantsuit. I was wearing a sharp dark blue dress, a string of pearls, and a confidence they had never seen before. I walked straight to the front of the conference room and set down my leather portfolio. Everyone stared. They were all nursing hangovers, looking tired and rumpled. They expected me to be sitting in the back, waiting to be dismissed for the last time. Mark cleared his throat, looking annoyed by my presence at the head of the table. "Amanda, glad you could make it for your last day. We'll get to the goodbyes in a minute, but I have some regional updates to get through first." I didn't move. I looked at him, my gaze steady. "Actually, Mark, I'll take it from here." A confused silence fell over the room. Mark's face tightened. "Excuse me?" I turned my attention to the rest of the team. My voice was calm, clear, and carried to every corner of the room. There was no anger in it, only authority. "Good morning, everyone," I began. "As some of you know, my transfer was effective as of this morning. What you weren't aware of were the details." I paused, letting the suspense build. "Corporate has restructured the regional leadership. As of today, I will be your new regional director. I'll be overseeing this department, as well as sales, client relations, and logistics. I look forward to working with all of you." From above, the silence that followed was absolute. It was so complete I could hear the faint buzz of the overhead projector. Faces went pale. Tom, who had been slouched in his chair, sat up so fast he nearly fell over. His mouth was hanging slightly open. Sarah's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the blood draining from her face. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. But the best reaction was Mark's. His face went from confusion to disbelief, then to pure, unadulterated horror. The smug, condescending man from the night before was gone. In his place was a stammering, terrified employee who had just realized his entire world had been turned upside down. He stared at me, his eyes wide, and I could see him replaying every condescending comment, every stolen idea, every single moment he had underestimated me. He had toasted my downfall, and now he had to report to me. "Amanda, he stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. "I don't understand." "You don't have to understand, Mark," I said calmly. "You just have to do your job, and from now on, you'll be doing it for me." The rest of the day was a blur of frantic, hollow apologies. Sarah was the first to appear at my door to my new office, the large corner one with floor-to-ceiling windows. "Amanda," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "about last night and, well, everything. I am so sorry. It was just office banter. We were just joking." I looked up from my computer and gave her a cool, professional smile. "I appreciate you stopping by, Sarah. From now on, I expect all your energy to be focused on the Q4 projections. They're due on my desk by Friday." She just stood there, stunned, then nodded and practically ran out of my office. Tom sent a long, rambling email full of excuses. Mark tried to schedule a one-on-one to clear the air. I accepted the meeting, but I kept it strictly professional. I laid out my expectations for his department, my department now, and the new reporting structure. There was no yelling, no bitterness. I didn't need it. My new position was statement enough. During a team meeting later that week, I addressed them all one last time on the matter. "I know the transition has been a surprise," I said, my voice even. "The past is the past, but let's be clear. Respect isn't given in speeches or apologies. It's shown in actions. It's shown in work ethic and integrity. Let's see yours going forward." My words hung heavy in the room. There were no more jokes. There were no more whispers. There was only work. I leaned back in my new leather chair. It was larger than any of theirs combined, and it looked out over the entire city. For a moment, I allowed myself a small private smile. They thought the party was my ending. They thought they were writing me out of the story, but they had only set the stage for my rise. My victory wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own narrative. It was about the quiet, persistent work finally speaking for itself. And from up here, the view was incredible. If you've ever been underestimated, remember, Quiet persistence speaks louder than cruelty. Like, subscribe, and share your story in the comments.